Welcome back to Western New York Living. Now, if you live in a neighborhood like mine, you see folks out for their morning walks, afternoon walks, nighttime walks. But as a pedestrian or as a driver, do you know what obligations and rights are when it comes to crosswalks or even just crossing the street? Well, this morning we're going to find out, because here to talk about the topic and hope everybody's safe this summer is from Cellino Law, Stephen Ciocca. Good to see you again here, Stephen.
Good to see you too.
All right, as a driver, let's talk about being a driver first here. What are the responsibilities I have as a driver when it comes to pedestrians?
So in New York State, every driver has an obligation to see what is there to be seen. In other words, your excuse isn't, I didn't see the guy, I didn't see the person, therefore I was somehow justified in what I did. No, whether it's morning, nighttime, dusk, bad weather, good weather, a driver does have an absolute obligation to see what is there to be seen, and that includes pedestrians.
What obligations do pedestrians have?
So this always comes up because we see it all the time. People crossing the street where they're probably not supposed to be. Pedestrians have an obligation to follow the law, and the law requires pedestrians to cross in crosswalks when they are available. So in other words, a pedestrian, if there's a crosswalk there, cross there. People don't always do that. It's not necessarily illegal, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but their obligation is to make sure that they're protecting their own self from other people, vehicles, other pedestrians, that type of thing.
All right, so that leads to the question, if a pedestrian is outside of the crosswalk or designated crossing place or at a corner, is the vehicle still liable if they hit that person?
They are. So, but there is something in New York State called comparative negligence. So what that means is that more than one person can be liable for an incident. So if a pedestrian's outside of a crosswalk and gets struck by a vehicle, what you have to look at is what was there to be seen by the vehicle, and was the pedestrian darting out into traffic? Was the pedestrian just simply walking a little bit outside of a crosswalk? In that situation, the vehicle is probably more liable than the pedestrian would be.
Weather and lighting, how do those factor in?
So as a motorist, you have to be extra cautious because, again, as we talked about, you do have an obligation to see what is to be seen. You can't say, well, it was dark outside, I didn't see the person. It was raining outside, I didn't see the person. It doesn't matter. You have an obligation to see that person, whether they're in the crosswalk or whether they're not in a crosswalk.
What about if both parties are liable, the pedestrian and the vehicle? What happens then?
So what happens is that the law allows you to split that liability. Now, ordinarily, if the parties can agree on maybe we're 50-50, but if there's a disagreement as to what percentage, then what the law does is they say, look, there's 100% of fault. How do we divide it? Ultimately speaking, that would be up to a jury. So if the case goes that far, somebody gets seriously injured by a vehicle, the vehicle's insurance carrier doesn't want to pay that person, then a jury would say, all right, the vehicle is this percent at fault, the individual is that percent at fault, and they add up to 100, and then the pedestrian or the injured party, their damages would be reduced by their percentage of fault.
I understand it's different if a motorcycle hits a pedestrian. How so?
So how that's different is in New York State, motorcycles are exempt from no fault. However, if a motorcycle strikes a pedestrian, the pedestrian gets their no fault benefits from the motorcycle. So it's kind of an odd thing where the person on the motorcycle, let's say a person on a motorcycle hits a pedestrian and the person that's riding the motorcycle gets injured, they do not have access to no fault. The person that they hit does have access to no fault because the motorcycle is carrying no fault coverage, not for the person on the motorcycle, but for the person that they hit with the motorcycle.
Final thing here, what should you do if you're a pedestrian and get hit by a vehicle, whether that vehicle stops or not?
Well, that's really important. So if you get hit by a vehicle, you better really hope that you locate who that vehicle is. If not, if you have your own insurance coverage through your car, then your car's no fault will pick up your medical bills, lost wages, and those types of things.
Important to note and important to have experts to call like Cellino Law and Stephen Ciocca. The personal injury attorneys at Cellino Law represent injury victims throughout New York State. If you've been involved in any type of personal injury, including a pedestrian accident, Cellino Law can help. Their offices are located at 800 Delaware Avenue in Buffalo. For more information, give Cellino Law a call. It's all 888-888-8888. You can also head to the website at cellinolaw.com to learn more about all the different services that Cellino Law provides.